What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and we're back for another episode of our fighting game tutorial series. So in this episode we're going to continue cleaning up our character class and game mode class. This is kind of a 2-for-1. We're really cleaning up our character in here, so that's what it is labeled under, but both of these things apply. That's kind of the point of a lot of these episodes. As we start cleaning things up, we can clean up other things as well, and that's why this has been such a long mini-series within the series. Because one thing leads to another, then we have a much better game than we did before. And specifically in today's episode, we're going to go over some of our end round, start round, end game, start game logic that we have in our game mode and our character, because they're kind of intertwined and they need to be to some degree, right? The character needs to know how to act when the game or the round starts, and they need to know how to act when the game or the round ends. However, the game mode should be responsible for all of that. Right now, the character has a little bit of influence on when those sort of things should happen. I want to remove that. I want the game mode to be fully responsible for this behavior and make the character just respond to what the game mode is telling it to do. For the most part, we are already completely there. We really only have 2 spots that I want to do something else with and clean it up a little bit further, and that's what we're going to be covering today. So by the end of this episode, the logic should be roughly the same, however cleaned up and less intertwined. That way each class has its role. It is also going to be a little bit better in performance as well. Now before we hop into today's episode, if you want to get caught up in the entire series and you see how we've done things like throws and special attacks and camera work and 3D movement and a lot more, I'll link you to the entire fighting game tutorial series. There's a lot in that playlist and there's more being added every week. Alternatively, if you just care about cleaning up your character game mode or having a clean character and game mode in your game in general, then I recommend watching the previous episodes where we cleaned up the character class. It's going to be very similar behavior today, where we are just cleaning up different parts of the character class. It will be useful to know why we're doing this going forward and what benefits and what mindsets you can have when coding to avoid a lot of these things and improve your performance overall. So if you're interested in that, I'll link the first episode of cleaning up the character class right here in the top right corner. And with that out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. So this is a code and blueprint tutorial series, and we're going to be focusing mainly on the code today. We'll be adding a few things to the code, and we'll be taking a few things away from blueprint, so we'll be cleaning that up as well. And to start, we can go to our base character blueprint. I already have it open, but it is in our blueprints, character BPs, base character BP. And in here, we've trimmed down this logic quite a bit, but in my opinion, there's a few other things we should remove. So if we go to this section right here, it is our notify round start and notify round end events. Now these events do very basic logic. Essentially, event notify round start just gets the game mode reference on the character blueprint and starts the round. And event notify round end just gets the game mode reference and calls end round, and then it also plays a sound effect when the round ends. Now first of all, we can do all of this in code because start round and end round can both be called from the fighter template game mode, which is not our blueprint game mode. So we can call it directly from the code, and we can also play a sound effect from the code. This is our custom play sound 2D node, not the regular play sound 2D node. So it has a little bit of extra logic that we do have in Blueprint, but this could also be moved to code. But we can do the same logic of custom PlaySound 2D through the regular PlaySound 2D node. This is just doing a lot of extra stuff for us, like making sure to use the sound effect volume of our base game instance, which we can do in code very easily. So it's up to us how we want to handle this, but I still think both of these events should be translated from blueprints to code. And to make it even easier, I don't believe that these things really need to exist at all. We can simply play the sound effect when the round ends on the game mode or the end round event right here. And we don't need to call them from the character at all. The game mode should be responsible for starting rounds and ending rounds. And we'll do that by going to the code. So when you're in the code, you can go to your fighter template character.h and search for notify round start and notify round end. And these are both blueprint implementable events. These are what we were just looking at in the base character BP. So this seems completely normal. Now let's see where these are called from, and we can do this by searching the entire project. Simply Control F and doing current project, search for this. You'll see it's in the header that we were just looking at and nowhere else. So if we go to our fighter template game mode.cpp, we should be calling it in here if we are going to be calling it. Visual Studio is saying that we are not calling it anywhere, but just to verify, we can look in start round. And you can see that we're not, at least not in here. So one thing we can do is just remove notify round start completely and launch our game again. And once the editor is back open, we can go back to base character BP. It is no longer a blueprint implementable event. This is just an event on the blueprint. So if we go to find results and search for notify round start and use the binoculars to search in all classes, we should not see it anywhere but the base character BP, and we don't, which means we can remove this. It actually was not being used anymore, so if we try to start our game, it will start without errors, and that's how we know it wasn't being used, because if it was being referenced, we would have gotten an error at this point. Of course, you can try and launch your game and make sure that everything starts properly, but it does because that wasn't being used. So problem solved right there, very easy, but round end is being used. So let's go handle that one. Let's go back to the code and go to fightertemplate_character.h and scroll down or search for notify round end. And it's right here. This one is going to be used, so we can search for it in our project. And we see it's being called in round 1 of fightertemplateGameMode.cpp. So when a round is 1, we determine who the winning character is, or if there isn't one, because if there's not one, it's a tie and that's accepted. But if there is one, we call win round on the character. I think this is perfectly appropriate because win round on the character class, we go back to fightertemplateCharacter.cpp, it's just telling the other character that if they haven't lost the round at this point, now they have, and we're incrementing the number of rounds 1. Now this really shouldn't even be done on the character class in my opinion either. This should be done in the game mode now that we have all the ability to do so. But let's stay focused on what we're looking at right now. So let's go back to Fighter Template Game Mode CPP. This is fine, and then we're checking to see if the character has won the number of rounds needed to win the match, and if they have, call match 1. This is also fine. But at this point we're calling winning character notify round end. Notify round end was just calling end round on the game mode in the blueprint, remember, and then playing a sound effect. At this point, we can just cut out the winning character notify round end and just call end round directly, and then add the sound effect to end round. If we do this, we can fully remove this event. So literally call end round right here on the game mode, and then we can go to fighter template character.h, and we can go to where we saw notify round end right here and just remove this function entirely. We don't need that blueprint implementable event. Then we go back to fighter template game mode.cpp, and in here is where we would play our sound effect. Now we played sound effects a few different ways throughout the series, and as I mentioned, it can be a little bit different from blueprint to code, but it's very simple. So we'll leave a comment here, play a sound effect indicating that the round has ended. Now before we even handle this, we can go ahead and launch the editor one more time. Then when the editor is open again, we can go to blueprint, character BPs, and base character BP, and then we can compile. So we still have it as an event. It doesn't come from the parent class, it is just here existing. So we can use it for a reference if needed, but we've already tackled this by just calling end round in the game mode, so we don't have to do this in here anymore. So if anything, the only useful part is this sound to play. We'll tackle this in a second. Let's make sure there are no references that we're directly calling notify round end, because blueprint implementable events can be blueprint callable. So notify round end. And nothing in here. Let's go to the binoculars and search all files, and there is nothing in here as well. So we can remove the event here, cleaning this up drastically. Now I'll just move my things around so that it is a little bit neater and more condensed, because it was very spaced out, but we've been clearing this whole section out over time, and there's not nearly as much now. So the only thing we're missing, as I said, is to play the knockout sound effect. That means we can remove this node for now, as we will handle it in the code, and then you can compile and save, and base character BP is ready to go. So now we can go back into the code one final time and scroll down to our end round function right here to where we want to play the sound effect. And actually you'll see that we have the include already here that we need to play sound effects. Let me just alphabetize that real quick, but it is Kismet/gameplay statics. So if we go back down to our logic here where we're going to play our sound effect, we can go to the next line and type gameplay statics : play sound 2D. So this is using that Kismet/gameplay statics I just mentioned. PlayStation 2D requires a world context, which I've gone over this before in the series, but essentially it is just some way to identify the level. So a very easy way of doing this is just get world. This will just get the current level, current world that we're in. And the next thing that we need is the actual sound effect. However, we aren't ready for that yet. We don't have a way to determine the sound effect in the code. We'll get there. So we need the sound effect volume after that. We're going to use the one in the game instance, and we can get the game instance by typing if auto game instance equals cast ubase game instance, and we're casting get world get game instance. So essentially what we're doing here is taking the world's game instance, or the current game instance used by the game, casting it to our specific game instance type, which is the base game instance, and then setting it to a value. If that value is valid, meaning it's not null and we actually did get the game instance and cast it properly, we can grab the sound effect volume from it. But if we can't, then we'll just skip playing the sound effect. We won't be able to build with this line in since we don't have all the parameters, so we can comment it out for now. Now at this point we are ready to determine the sound effect that we're going to play, and to do this we can make a variable for it in the fightertemplatGameMode.h. So I'll come down here and leave a comment. The sound effect to play when a round ends. So I'll make it U property of edit anywhere blueprint read write with a category of match flow or something similar. And I'm going to call it U sound wave pointer round end sound. This is the sound effect we will play when we end a round. Simple enough. But once we make this, we need a way to assign it. We can access it within the editor very easily, so if we set it on the default game mode BP, that would work. We could also directly reference the sound, but I'd rather set it in the blueprint in this case. I think that is much cleaner. So we can load up the editor, go to the default game mode BP, go to the class defaults, search for our round end sound, and just play the same sound effect we were playing before. For me, that is the knockout sound effect. So once I assign this, I can go back into the code and I can make sure that I pass in our round end sound to the PlayStation 2D. Make sure we uncomment the line now, since we will be able to build with it this time. Then, like I said, we can put in our round end sound variable, and that sound effect will play at the desired volume. So now you can test again and everything will be working as expected. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode on how to clean up your character blueprint and your game mode blueprint, or your game mode class, and your code classes for the character and the game mode. If you did and you enjoy watching this content, then please subscribe, because it helps me more than anything else you can do, and it is completely free, so I really appreciate all the love and support. If you're interested in supporting the channel further, you can check out the Patreon, YouTube membership, or Discord subscriptions to help benefit myself and the channel, but also get some rewards for doing so. Thank you so much to all the kind souls listed on the screen who have. If you ran into any problems following the tutorial or any of my tutorials, feel free to join the Discord community. There is a link in the description, and I would be happy to help you out. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.